No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
And welcome in and welcome back to Corin's Reading Room, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, the man himself, Corin Nimick, is in the house.
Do you give the best introductions, my friend? The best. Welcome to KLRN Radio. And yes, this is my office. Not really. I mean, I do some reading in here, but my library is out there. Maybe I'll have to figure out a way to show it to you someday. Got a great collection of books. That jazzy music that you heard is by none other than Mos Jackson, dear friend of mine and music producer. You can follow him on Instagram and X. And if you yourself need some jazzy, funky, or any other type of music, he does it all. He's one shop stopping for your musical needs and wants. If you have your own show and you want a jazzy introduction or something else, or you do music, you're a singer, rapper, or whatever else, go and check out Mos, M-O-S-E, Mos Jackson. Look him up. Tell him I sent you. So yeah, anybody who's new here, I just generally go and grab a book off the shelf. We're only on episode 3. I feel like I've done 18 of these, but 3 episodes. I had to skip a couple because I got an acting job and had to take off, go out of town, work on this awesome movie called Kill Trip. But I'm back now, and I go out of town this week to go do a convention in France in Etienne, and I will be over there through the weekend. So I'm gonna talk to our buddy Rick and see if Rowdy Rick can do a pre-record for next Sunday, so that we don't end up in this kind of weird cycle where I keep disappearing. But hello, everybody who's out there on the chat skis. This was the book that we left off with. I decided that we should keep up with this. It's called The Lost Keys of Freemasonry by Manly P. Hall. It is just an absolute gem. I really highly suggest ordering it. If you do order it, try and order it from the Philosophical Research Society, which is Manly P. Hall founded that, and it still exists today. I've done some courses over there in the past when I lived in Los Angeles. It's in Los Feliz. If you're traveling to LA, definitely go to Los Feliz, visit the Philosophical Research Society. He has an amazing a bookshop there, and he's just I would highly recommend you look up Manly P. Hall on YouTube or Rumble or whatever. And there's a lot of old lectures of his that he recorded. Every Sunday he would do lectures at the Philosophical Research Society, and they were all incredible. So, I won't go back into the stuff that we did last week. If you are interested, you can go back and watch last week's episode and catch up. But where we did leave off was on page 30. And again, I just go through and I read the areas. I don't know if you can see that as a bad reflection, but I outline the stuff that jumps out to me. And so I'll just go through, read it, and we'll, kind of expound on it. What's up, everybody? Hello, everybody. I see you over there. I promise. I see you all. Grateful Calvin, Alan Ray, Raptor, Little Miss Twitch, of course, Rick Robinson, the Commodore Green, and the Immortal Twin. I see you all, and you're all welcome here. I love you. So here in the second paragraph, there's highlighted, and it talks about the light, right? So the light is the light is the inspiration. It's the consciousness. It's that moment when we have an idea, that aha moment in life where where something just suddenly all makes sense. And that kind of, that state, you could call it like a state of bodhi, and like in Buddhism. But inspiration is a good way of considering what it means. So this light enables us to seek more clearly the mysteries of creation and to find with greater certainty our place in the great plan. And I love that little line right there, because, I think that's something that all of us kind of can be curious about. Is like, what is it? What's the whole point of this? What are we even doing here? What is this? Just born to die, just born to go to work every day, drive the same route, do the same things, see the same people, all of that, but and in a sense that is the journey. And it's just how we take that journey, I suppose, that separates man from beast, hopefully. It continues. So when man can mold his thoughts, his emotions, and his actions into faithful expressions of his highest ideals, then liberty is his. For ignorance is the darkness of chaos, and knowledge is the light of cosmos. When, having discovered that the pleasures of sense gratification are eternally elusive and unsatisfying, we make an examination of ourselves and begin to realize that there are greater reasons for our being. And I love that. Even if we never fully uncover what is the greater reason for our existence or our being, I was just telling my son the other day, one of the greatest accomplishments you can have in life is being a decent, kind person to others, and living a good life. And it's not always easy. We run into struggles and relationship problems and familial problems and work problems and all of the other kind of things that can crush us and really bring us down. But through those struggles, hopefully we end up at the end of the day making a beneficial decision that helps everyone involved in our lives, right? Um, so, somewhere behind the veil of human ignorance, there is an eternal light toward which step by step we must labor. In fear and trembling, yet with a divine realization of good, he raps on the door and awaits in silence the answer from within. And now, going on to chapter 3, The Entered Apprentice. There are three grand steps in the unfoldment of the human soul before it completes the dwelling place of the spirit. These have been called, respectively, youth, manhood, and old age, or, as the Mason would say, the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master builder. All life passes through these three grand stages of human consciousness. At birth, we start our pilgrimage through youth, manhood, and old age. So the spiritual consciousness of man in his cosmic path of unfoldment passes from unconsciousness to perfect consciousness in the grand lodge of the universe. That to me, those bits there, they grab me because that it's kind of like the mystery of the Sphinx, what is born on four legs, lives on two, and dies on three, and that's a man, woman, whatever. But what is it? Do we stop that journey of so-called enlightenment or curiosity or um, uh, you know our interests? Do we just, because we've been beaten up by life, because we're just too busy in survival mode to even entertain something outside of the norm? Is that just our destiny to never do anything other than what we're forced to do to survive? And I think that yes, I'm in mind that there is no greater purpose, nothing ultimately matters, and if nothing matters, then what we do is all that matters. And that's Samuel the Infamous just wrote that, and that's exactly totally right. It's what we do and how we do it, and at the end of the day, hopefully, those things equal a good outcome. The other thing that I just wanted to touch on too is that I was thinking about this earlier today. The greatest crime that has been committed against the young people of today is the dumbing down of our youth, and this kind of indoctrination into ignorance, you could say, that goes on from the youngest age in elementary school to graduating high school, if you graduate, and what do you graduate even knowing anymore? They've changed the curriculum so much they don't even teach cursive writing anymore. I had to go and try and teach my son cursive, and because the school stopped teaching it, which is fine, but it was a battle to even get him to engage in that. I never successfully got him to fully commit to it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like cursive, when you write in cursive, it's sort of an expression of yourself. My mother and father both have amazing cursive handwriting, and I kind of have taken after them. I have pretty good cursive handwriting when I put my mind to it. But my point is that if you're not introduced to some kind of higher ideals or some type of idea of greater purpose at a very young age, I mean, I see that it's just it's tragic what's happened to our youth of today, because they're being raised by the internet, by TikTok videos, and everybody can be famous with a phone. And the more crazy stuff that you film or do or post, or how you behave, the more interesting, I guess, you are. And my acting teacher, Manu Tupo, said, the most fascinating actor to watch is not the one that's interesting, it's the one who's interested. And I think that's very true. Um, so yeah, that's I think that if we had a revamping of the educational system and introduced this kind of idea of cosmic principles and ultimate goals for ourselves, for humanity, and what we can do to give back and all of that kind of stuff, I think that would be massive. And also to bring back the trades into schools and stuff. When I was young, they had wood shop, and they had metal shop, and they had electric shop. And in high school, you could go into the you could do car shop, you could, so they were actually teaching trades that by the time you graduated high school, if you had taken it for enough years, you could literally go and start working at a mechanic shop, which is a great gig as far as I'm concerned. So it goes on here, page 34. The Mason must realize that his true initiation is a spiritual and not a physical ritual. The true initiation depends upon the cultivation of certain soul qualities. The degree of entered apprentice is acquired when the student signifies his intention to take the rough ashlar when he cuts from the quarry and prepares for the truing of the fellow craft. For all spiritual life must be raised upon a material foundation. So the rough ashlar, and ashlar is just a stone. The rough ashlar is a stone that has just been roughly cut out of a quarry, or even just found already in kind of a boulder form, and then with hammer and chisel, with time and attention to detail, can be perfected into a perfect square, uh, for being set into some type of edifice. And that's what we're attempting to do uh, with ourselves. The character traits that we have that we don't like about ourselves, the things that we find fault within ourselves, is hopefully attempting to the best of our abilities to chisel away at that, and get to a place where where we can at least feel good about ourselves, and hopefully other people can feel good about us too. Now, let me tell you something. There's no perfection. I am messing up all the time, but it's at least interesting to think about. Um, so and also how it talks about here, thoughts, emotions, and actions. I call that the TEA: thoughts, emotions, and actions. What have you had your tea for the day? What are you thinking about? How are you feeling? And what are you doing? So I think that's something to kind of consider when being involved in the day. What are you thinking about? How are you feeling? And what are you doing? Um, as the spiritual consciousness progresses through the chain, the lower lose connection with it when it has raised itself above their level, until finally only the grand masters are capable of remaining in session, and unknown even to the master mason, it finally passes back again to the spiritual hierarchy from which it came. All growth is the result of exercise and the intensifying of vibratory rates. It is obvious that the rough ashlar symbolizes the body. It also represents cosmic root substance, which is taken out of the quarry of the universe by the first expressions of intelligence and molded by them into ever finer and more perfect lines, until finally it becomes the perfect stone for the builder's temple. On the vibratory rates, all growth is the result of exercise and the intensifying of vibratory rates. All life is, as they've suggested, and even in theoretical physics, is vibratory in nature, and vibratory is tonal. So what kind of what is the tone that we're emitting? So that's like a frequency, and you could say that that's an auric type of thing. It's a vibe. You can get vibes from people. Well, that's a frequency. That's a pulse. It's an energy that's being put out there. And uh, I think that, with respect to the intensifying of vibratory rates, when you get into like Buddhism, which I studied at the Taoist Institute of LA back in the day when I was in my late 20s, and I studied there for maybe 3 years or so, doing qigong and meditation and stuff. But I never committed to it as a lifestyle, which probably would have served me very well. So I understand it, from that time period of experience studying it, and and intellectually. But I don't know if I can say that I'm the vibe of that. You know what I mean? But the how, what is our vibe is a big deal, and I know that my wife will say that, in some mornings with my grumps, I'm not giving off the best vibe. And that's something that I need to work on, right? We all got something that we can work on. But thinking about, what's my vibe? How am I feeling? What am I emitting from myself? And what are other people emitting? Do I want to vibrate on that frequency? Do I want to introduce that into my world, or do I, want to let go of that? And I mean, sometimes we got to let go of friendships because it's just too bad of a vibe, right? But so few realize that since the universe is made up of individuals in various stages of development, responsibility is consequently individual, and everything which man wishes to gain, he must himself build and maintain. The lost key of the entered apprentice is service. His work is to do, to act, to express himself in some way, constructively if possible, but destructively rather than not at all. Without action, he loses his great work. Without tools, which symbolize the body, he cannot act in an organized manner. With his concrete ideals, he must beautify all with which he comes in contact, so that the works of his hand may be acceptable in the eyes of the great architect of the universe. It's just beautiful. This guy's, I mean, this Manly B. Hall is just a brilliant writer. He's got so many books, so many books. And yes, exactly. There's no deep reflection or introspection into self. Yeah, there's not a lot of that anymore, Little Miss Twitch. You are correct. There's, it's all through these devices. And trust me, I go down the death scroll myself, where it's like, 7 seconds of this, 7 seconds of that, 7 seconds of this. It's deadly. It's deadly. So here at the gates of the temple of wisdom, bound with the cable tow of limitation, poor in spirit and body, man seeks admittance to the university of understanding. In the ancient mysteries, the order of the steps was 7, 5, and 3. The 7 liberal arts and sciences, the 5 senses and emotions, and the 3 steps symbolic of the Trinity of God and man. All initiation is the result of adjustments of the evolving life to the physical, emotional, and mental planes of consciousness through which it passes. It is essential that the entered apprentice must devote himself to the study of his own being and its mysteries and complexities. That which is true. Being extroverted is great, and introverted too has its benefits. Obviously, there's always going to be a special balance between both. Um, and Mrs. Bro, say hello. Yes, hello, Mrs. Bro. I hope everyone's good. Oh yes, there's my darling is watching. That's so sweet. I was just
That's what I was trying to tell you.
that you're so wonderful. Thank you, Ricky. Yes, my darling Sabrina is in there, and I apologize for my morning grumps and all the apologies. And but going on here, so uh, you know what time, how much time do we even devote to thinking about who we are, what we're doing, and what are we getting out of life? Because the pressures and stresses of life can and will cause us to behave, and cause me to behave in ways that aren't uh, healthy, that aren't good vibes, that aren't giving off good frequencies, and that aren't maintaining kind of a balanced status quo. Which doesn't mean that you have to be boring or not go out and let loose or have a good time or whatever, but it's got to be done in some semblance of you're living, you're doing it the right way. You know what I mean? But so the entered apprentice must realize that his body is the living temple of the living God and treat it accordingly. The breaking of his pact with the higher life evolving within himself unfailingly invokes the retributive agencies of nature. Human relationships must be idealized at this time, and he must seek to unfold all unselfish qualities which are necessary for the harmonious working of the Mason and his fellow men on the physical plane of nature. The Mason must realize that his innermost motives are the index of his real self, and those who allow social position, financial or business considerations, or selfish and materialistic ideals to lead them into the Masonic Brotherhood have thereby automatically separated themselves from the craft. So, I mean, in Masonry, they talk about the craft, and the craft, you can't have a craft without working tools. So there's the working tools of the operative Mason, who is the person who's actually out there building things. And then there's the working tools of the speculative Mason. And they all are the same thing. So, you have the squares to square our actions, the compasses is to circumscribe our passions and keep our desires within due bounds. The hammer and chisel is to chisel away at the character defects and the imperfections that we have about ourselves. And even in a physical sense, if you don't feel like you're in the best shape, then part of that is getting in better shape in whatever way that you feel you can, to just feel a little bit better about ourselves. And the plumb is to keep ourselves upright. And the string line, or that's the plumb line. And the ruler is or what's called the 24-inch gauge, is to separate our time equally between 8 hours of rest, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of relaxation. And it goes on. So the working tools of the operative Mason can be applied to life as a speculative Mason, in some sense, to build this so-called temple within, this lodge for the grand architect of the universe to live in, that we are part and parcel to. When we reach, some will call them God. There's a lot of different names for God. There's Yahweh, there's Allah, there's whatever else, but the idea of reaching for something that's greater and higher than we are, that it will reach down towards us as we reach towards it, and there'll be that union. But if we're not fit for any kind of union like that, then there'll be no reaching. But so it goes on chapter 4, the fellow craft. Life manifests not only through action on the physical plane, but through human emotion and sentiment. Like spirited horses chafing at the bit, like hounds eager for the chase, the emotional powers cannot be held in check, but break the walls of restraint and pour forth as fiery expressions of dynamic energy. Through the perversion of human emotions, there comes into the world untold sorrow, which through reaction manifests in the mental and physical bodies. The spiritual light rays of cosmos, the fire princes of the dawn, which seethe and surge through the unregenerate man, are the impulses which he perverts to murder and hate. The ceaseless power of chaos, the seething pinwheel spirals of perpetual motion, whose majestic cadences are the music of the spheres, are energized by the same great power that man uses to destroy the highest and the best. I'll just finish this up real quick. The same energy that is building the temple of God is now a merciless slave driver, which, unmastered and uncurbed, strikes the compassionate one and sends him reeling backward into the darkness of his person. And that's just, again, if we don't have some semblance of balance within ourselves, if I don't feel some semblance of balance within myself, that unstable, part of me will start to become unbalanced. I mean, that's the best way to say it. And that the potential for misemotions and behaviors that aren't conducive to maintaining good relationships, not only with myself but with others, and all of that. That's that ma- maintaining some kind of balance of emotional condition is really, really important. And the way he wrote this, I mean, God, he's such a beautiful writer. The spiritual light rays of cosmos, the fire princes of the dawn, which seethe and surge through the unregenerate man, are the impulses which he perverts to murder and hate. And that's when you get into these individuals who've gotten so dark and so demonic that it's totally okay for them to go out and do horrible things to others, to steal from others, to murder, to molest, to do whatever other criminal behavior, and feel fully justified in it for some dark, ridiculous reason. It's true insanity. The strength of man was not given to be used destructively, but that he might build a temple worthy to be the dwelling place of the grand architect of the universe. Man can only expect to be entrusted with great power by proving his ability to use it constructively and selflessly. Incessant vigilance over thought, action, and desire is indispensable to those who wish to make progress in the unfolding of their own being. The heart that hates must learn the mystery of compassion as the result of a deeper and more perfect understanding of man's relation to his brother. The firm, kind hand of spirit must curb the flaming powers of emotion with an iron grip. Man must realize that all the powers which his many years of need have earned for him have come in order that through them he may liberate more fully the prisoner within his own being. The spiritual duty is to reach the point of poise or balance, which is always secured between extremes: compassion, poise, and transmutation. So it's, again, it seems repetitive, but I we all need to be beaten over the head with certain things in order to recognize that there is the possibility of some type of dynamic change or understanding about the reasons for even being here in the first place, and to somehow attempt to define what that is. And I'm not saying that there's any type of perfection available to any of us. I think probably the greatest perfection that anybody could likely attain is the nothingness of something, like literally doing nothing. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not doing good, you're not engaging in good behavior, bad behavior, anything. It's like no behavior really could be perceived as the best behavior, because you're one way or the other, you aren't making any type of dynamic, change or shift in energies or whatever. And I think, that's sort of the point of meditation, is when you go into that state of it's not like non-existence. It's not like you're not trying to you're not trying to not think. It's the idea of the thoughts being like leaves in the wind, that you're not trying to attach oneself to anything that is being thought of. So, and this is what I was taught when I was studying at the Taoist Institute, was just, don't try to force yourself to have a blank mind, but be able to allow the thoughts to pass through the mind, like watching a river passing by from the shoreline. You're not being the river. You're being the shore, and you're just seeing the river pass by, and that's the vibe. It's very interesting. So man must realize that all powers which his many years of need have earned for him have come in order that through them he may liberate more fully the prisoner within his own being. um, I already read that part, but it's important I think, to, just to read it again real quick, because it's like, we're all prisoners. We're all trapped in some sense, just even in this body, in this physical universe, in our daily routine, in our lives. There can be these trappings, that especially financial trappings can be the worst in this materialistic universe that we're in. Is there's almost no greater stresses in today's day and age than financial conditions, financial situations. See, a lot of people are agreeing with that one. And it's tragic because, there was, we haven't grown up in that time period, but there was a time period when, before a centralized banking system and a fiat currency, when money actually was worth something, and you needed very little of it to get, to purchase items and to get what you need in life and to survive. And there wasn't all of these regulations and rules and taxes and all of this other stuff. There was a time, even in this very country, before the Federal Reserve existed when life was very different. I mean, can you imagine no federal income tax and no real property taxes to speak of any kind? You know that I won't get into too much of that, but the Postal Service is to blame for the introduction of property taxes in some respect. It's a whole different conversation. I have another book about that, but we shall continue. He should now study himself and realize that he cannot receive promotion into the spiritual lodge until his heart is attuned to a superior spiritual influx from the causal planes of consciousness. That's a great line. He should now study himself and realize that he cannot receive promotion into the spiritual lodge until his heart is attuned to a superior spiritual influx from the causal planes of consciousness. The causal planes of consciousness. I mean, just the concept of that alone is so potent. The causal planes of consciousness. It's there's in the Hindu lore, there's the Akashic record or the Akashic field, and it's basically that the universe, this electromagnetic universe, is recording every potential. It's recording everything that has happened, everything that is happening, and everything that potentially might happen in the future. And that we ourselves can tune into the Akashic field, and we can intuit information from it. And so in the sense that anybody who invents something, some kind of cool new device or gadget, or whatever, you could even say the internet itself is a physical manifestation of the Akashic field, and that are being attuned with that kind of radiance is the reason why we're even able to come up with these new and inventive ideas. The causal planes of consciousness, can we tune into that? Can we even vibe with it? Can we even think about it? Don't think about it too hard while you're driving. We want you to pay attention to the road as well. But I highly recommend, if you have a long drive to work, or if you're in the car a lot, listening to the Manly P. Hall lectures and Alan Watts lectures. Alan Watts is like one of my favorite philosophers in modern time. Alan Watts's lectures are he's entertaining, he's funny, he's thoughtful, and he's got a British accent, which is just everybody loves. Sort of. It's kind of, yes. It's an interesting accent. He's got a great accent. So on to chapter 5, the master. There are some under the impression that the Fed Reserve was illegally ratified. Do you agree with that? Well, the reason why they say that is because they brought it to a vote on December 23rd of 1913, when almost all of Congress and everybody else were off at home and weren't able to vote on it. So there was only a small amount of New World Order enthusiasts who were there to push it through. And there was an uproar at the time after that happened, because there was numerous other attempts to introduce a central bank to the U.S. and they continuously failed. It's hard to imagine that there's another way for the United States to do its banking. But there is, and there has been, and there's many. There's a number of different ways. I got some books on that too. But so yeah, I do believe that there was some surreptitious activity going on during the time period of the passing of the Federal Reserve Act. That definitely could have been cause for it to be overturned, but we can just say, oh, Woodrow Wilson, that traitorous Woodrow Wilson was the one who signed it into law.
Well, since we're crossing into my wheelhouse, let's not forget that 3 of the biggest detractors of the centralized bank went down on what was supposed to be the Titanic and probably turned out to be its sister ship.
Yes, exactly. That's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. Yes, there is a very interesting theory about the fact that ship was intentionally scuttled with a bunch of very patriotic American families that were on board who very well could have turned the tides of where we went as a country, as a nation back then, because they had so much sway over over American politics at the time in a positive way. That's a great rabbit hole. um Chapter 5, the Master Mason. Wisdom and understanding are the only true measurements of age. He no longer depends upon the words of others, but upon the still voice that speaks from the heart of his own being. There is no more glorious position that a man may hold than that of a master builder who has risen by labor through the degrees of human consciousness. Genius. The Master Mason embodies the power of the human mind, that connecting link which binds heaven and earth together in an endless chain. His spiritual light is greater because he has evolved a higher vehicle for its expression. And that line here on the previous page, there is no more glorious position that a man may hold than that of a master builder who has risen by labor through the degrees of human consciousness. See, it doesn't say anything in here about being rich and powerful. There's nothing wrong with making money and being successful, because as we all know, financial affluence does give us a lot more ability to play in the world. But at the same time, as I'm sure many of you know, there are those individuals who have access to more financial freedom, but they can't really use it because they're so busy maintaining the finances and all the chaos that goes with that, all the moving parts that go with that it can be overwhelming even for the person who does have a good amount of money. The management of that can be just as big of a trap as the person who is struggling to make ends meet, as interesting as that sounds. But that's that's the world that we're in now. So there's got to be some semblance of balance that we can find between the material and the spiritual, and that dialectic materialism, which is the state or condition that this is all there is. There is no spiritual universe, and that live by paycheck to paycheck, brother. I definitely get it. I certainly, people would see my my IMDb and be like, yo, this dude must be rolling in it. But the projects don't pay what they used to, and if you're only doing 2 or 3 independent films a year, thank God for the autograph signing. So I get you, Kata, man. It's it's a tough game to play, and that's why it is great to have a partner in your life where each we can all share in the discomfort of the physical universe, and hopefully make it better for each other in some way, so that we can at least have a condition of living where we're not totally always stressed all the time, and that just puts a lot of bad chemicals in the body, and it's a bad vibe in life, to live that way. But the ancients taught that the sun was not a source of light, life, or power, but a medium through which life and light were reflected into physical substance. The Master Mason is in truth a sun, a great reflector of light, who radiates through his organism, purified by ages of preparation, the glorious power which is the light of the lodge. That's also sometimes called the inner sanctum sanctorum, the holy of holies. In some Freemasonic philosophy, the idea of Solomon's temple, the original one, was not that it was actually physically built in reality, but that it was designed in the mind, and that this is what we're trying to do, is to create a temple in the mind, where in the holy of holies is that place where we can be alone in the inner sanctum, and be alone, not just with ourselves, but be alone with the grand architect of the universe, that divine being that encompasses all things. And in that aloneness, we suddenly become attached to everything. And that is the ultimate extroversion, is being able to even fathom this idea that we can be connected to everything that is existing in present time, for better or for worse, right? But his symbol is the rising sun, for in him the globe of day has indeed risen in all its splendor from the darkness of the night, illuminating the immortal east with the first promise of approaching day. He realizes that the choice of avoiding responsibility is no longer his, and that for him all problems must be met and solved. The greatest sermon he can preach, the greatest lesson he can teach, is that of standing forth and living. Sorry, let me reread that. The greatest sermon he can preach, the greatest lesson he can teach, is that of standing forth a living proof of the eternal plan. The triple energies of thought, desire, and action must be united in harmonious blending of expression. I know we're already coming up on 45 minutes. So I want to try and get through the rest of this, but he realizes that the choice of avoiding responsibility is no longer his, and that for him, all problems must be met and solved. The greatest sermon he can preach, the greatest lesson he can teach, is that of standing forth a living proof of the eternal plan. And that's just beautiful to me. Just the idea that, and again, it comes back to that, that at least you're trying to be a good person in life. And trust me, it doesn't always work. There's a lot of flows and pressures and uh, um, in relationships, especially, as we all know, we all come. There we go. Yeah, the Temple of Solomon was metaphysical, and the demons he used a bit were metaphorical. And alchemy is the real art of life. Yes, Alien Perspective. I love that dude. He's got some great memes. He's the meme king. Follow him on Twitter if you like an offensive meme every now and then. He's the best at it. But yeah, man, that's totally. I'm right there with you. It's um, I'm not into the whole demonology side of things. That's not my bag. Then it was said, that Solomon had his ability to speak and summon demons, but at the same time, this gets into this idea of like, what is that? Are these our intelligences? These are actual disembodied entities? Are these just aspects of our own self that are latent? What is that? And I think that the best thing that we can summon is, a good feeling, a good vibe, right, Rick?
Oh, definitely agree there.
Yeah.
I'm still working on my vibes because
Hey, dude, you got the best vibes. I love your vibes. I'd like to spread your vibes on my bagels in the morning. It'd be delicious.
I don't usually do this for this type of show, but we have rules and you've earned this one. So giggity giggity, giggity goo.
Yes. So the things which we see around us are but forms, promises of a thing unnamed, symbols of a truth unknown. It is in the spiritual temple built without the voice of workman or the sound of hammer that the true initiation is given. And there, robed in the simple lambskin of a purified body, the student becomes a master mason, chosen out of the world to be an active worker in the name of the great architect. Yeah, I mean, dude, this guy's just Manly P. Hall, and this is like not even one of his like more, more profound books. This is like a stepping stone of his wisdom. But I think that's again, that's what we're trying to hopefully all achieve in life, is just is finding that middle road where we can be in communication with the universe around us, but in a way that isn't totally and completely disruptive. I know that it can be a task because there's so many pressures in life, and there's different moving parts because each individual person out there has their own idea of what's right and wrong and what they want to see in somebody else, how they want to see somebody else behave, what they want to see somebody else do, and then the individual has, what they want to do, how they perceive themselves, how do they want to behave, what actions do they want to take, and this clashing of personalities and vibes is like, that can become a beautiful day. One vibe can be a bright cloudless sky with a warm sunshine, and the other vibe can be the beach with the still breeze and the tweeting birds, and those two vibes go great together. And then other times, those vibes can become a cyclone and a storm, and it can become quite chaotic, right? So um, it's important to try and communicate a little bit better on a deeper level too, which I got to work on myself. I'm not saying that I'm by no stretch of the imagination do I want any of you to think that just because I'm interested in this kind of stuff and know about this kind of stuff, that I have in any way am the master builder of the inner temple of peace. Okay. But so every true Mason has come into the realization that there is but one lodge, that is the universe, and but one brotherhood composed of everything that moves or exists in any of the planes of nature. He realizes that his vow of brotherhood and fraternity is universal, and that mineral, plant, animal, and man are all included in the true Masonic craft. The mystic Mason, in building the eyes that see behind the apparent ritual, recognizes the oneness of life manifesting through the diversity of form. The true discipline of ancient Masonry has given up forever the worship of personalities. With his greater insight, he realizes that all forms and their position in material affairs are of no importance to him, and compared to the life which is evolving within. I know we're already coming on 51 minutes. That's this part right here, though. The true disciple of ancient Masonry has given up forever the worship of personalities, and I'll get into some books on Kabbalah down the road. Kabbalah can be pretty complex to wrap your head around, but I got this when I studied at the Kabbalah Institute out in Los Angeles. The rabbi that I was studying with, I have one of his books out there that he wrote, and it basically, when I had the biggest aha moment ever, one of the biggest aha moments ever when I was studying with him, is that in the mystical Judaism, in the Kabbalah, the word Satan, or as we call it Satan, is the human ego, is the solidified personality that we can become worshipers of. We worship our own self and the importance of our own self and how great we are, or what we want to achieve. Forget what damage it might cause to others. That's what we're going to do anyway. And so the idea of like let's just say a satanic cult would be a cult of personality. That all of these individuals are believing that they, as an individualized ego, is the god, is the greatest achievement, is the greatest accomplishment that you can have, is becoming this this thing which is just a projection into the metaphysical universe, that through our own intention we're manifesting this idea of personality. My acting teacher, Manu Tupo, at the American Repertory Company, where I studied for 15 years, he just railed against the idea of becoming a solidified version of ourselves. He hated the idea of a personality that was permanent and fixed, and that was held into place constantly. He just said, you got to let go of it, let go of it, let go of it. Don't try to be this idea of yourself. Just freaking be. Just be, just vibe. And that to me is is really important, really important. So, material prosperity is not the measurement of soul growth. There is one connected life principle, the spark of God in all living things. North, east, south, and west stretch the diversities of human thought, and while the ideals of man apparently differ, when all is said and the crystallization of form with its false concepts is swept away, one basic truth remains: all existing things are temple builders, laboring for a single end. There is no place for little minds in a great work. The true master mason enters his lodge with one thought uppermost in his mind: how can I, as an individual, be of greater use in the universal plan? No true brother seeks anything for himself, but unselfishly labors for the good of all. The true light can come only to those who, asking nothing, gladly give all to it. The true brother of the craft, while constantly striving to improve himself mentally, physically, and spiritually through the days of his life, never makes his own desires the goal of his works. I know we're at 55 minutes, and I want to get through the rest of this. There's some stories in the back that if you buy this book, you can just read, and they're just cool. Um, Kind of cool continuation. That's just, again, that just stressing that part of it. No true brother seeks anything for himself, but unselfishly labors for the good of all. And again, like I said, to my son not that long ago, it's like, what's the best thing that we can be is a decent person, and and even when we're out in life, being kind to others, even if somebody else is a jerk, it doesn't mean that we have to be a jerk back. We don't have to reflect that jerkdom, because then we're taking, their bad vibe, and we're making it our bad vibe, and we're reflecting that bad vibe at them. And what are we going to do is we're going to leave with that bad vibe. Instead, let that person be in that vibe, and don't try to change it or shift it, or just flow positive energy at them. Hopefully that will rub off. But otherwise, being reactive is there's a fine line there in being reactive, for sure. So my father was raised by the St. Franciscan monks in Italy until my grandfather could get him to America, and they taught that God and the devil are both within us. Yeah, totally, Carlo. Yes, yeah, 100%. And also Ralph Lindy said they're the devil within too. And Ralph Lindy he really digs the tarot cards. And Ralph Lindy, you should definitely get on the Philosophical Research Society website and get Manly P. Hall's tarot card deck. It's supposedly, from what I've been told from other people who like tarot, it's the best. It's better than the Rider Waite one. And that's what I've been told. So counting down, I'm going to jump into these last couple of paragraphs here real quick, and I won't come back to this book next time. We'll find another one. But every Mason knows that a broken vow brings with it a terrible penalty. Let him also realize that failure to live mentally, spiritually, and morally up to one's highest ideals constitutes the greatest of all broken oaths. When a Mason swears that he will devote his life to the building of his father's house and then defiles his living temple through the perversion of mental power, emotional force, and active energy, he is breaking a vow which imposes not hours but ages of misery. If he is worthy to be a Mason, he must be great enough to restrain the lower side of his own nature, which is daily murdering his Grand Master. He must realize that a misdirected life is a broken vow, and that daily service, purification, and the constructive application of energy is a living invocation which builds within and draws to him the power of the Creator. An impure life is a broken trust. A destructive action is a living curse. A narrow mind is a strangled cord around the throat of God. Within himself, he must build those qualities which will make possible his true understanding of the craft. He can show the world only forms which mean nothing. The life within is forever concealed until the eye of spirit reveals it. If he allows himself for one moment to lose his simplicity and humility, a fall is inevitable. The true brother is always noted for his simplicity. The speculative craft will then become operative, and the ancient wisdom so long concealed will rise from the ruins of its temple as the greatest spiritual truth yet revealed to man. Many brethren make a great mistake in building a wall around their secrets, for they succeed only in shutting out their own light. Their divine opportunity is at hand. The time has come when the world needs the ancient wisdom as never before. The fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man were united in the completion of the eternal temple, the great work for which all things came into being and through which all shall glorify their Creator. And that's it for the main, all the main chapters. And it's perfect timing. It's 15. We're out of this now. But I just want to highly recommend reading this book. You don't have to be a Freemason to dig what is being said in here. And if you are interested in Freemasonry, call the secretary at your local lodge and ask for a meeting. But I'll tell you, it's I highly recommend this book. And The Lost Keys of Freemasonry is an incredible read. You'll get a lot out of it. And I just want to thank KLRN Radio for this opportunity to talk about Manly P. Hall and his works. We'll talk about more of them. And thank all of you who came and joined me this evening for Corin's Reading Room.
Remind them where they can find you, Corin.
You can find me at on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm Corin Nemec, the letter I, the letter M, and then my name, Corin Nemec. On YouTube, it's Corin Nemec TV. And I'll see you all out there on the interwebs.
All right, folks, if you are so inclined, please hang out for, I believe it's In the Crease tonight. I could be wrong. It might be Lost Wonder. I haven't checked the schedule, but it's our programming director, Jeff, otherwise known as the Alien. So
yes,
coming up next. So, hang out, folks, and thanks for hanging out with us now.